Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our last day of conference. I hope you have a cup of coffee or your tea and are settling in. This is also a reminder to celebrate your CNAs. This is CNA week, so make sure to show your appreciation. Today we are opening up with Peter Brissette. He is the owner of AssistedLivingMarketing.com. He's known as the Digital Marketing Dude. ALM provides marketing services and consulting primary to senior care communities that help them show they are trustworthy business that generates new leads and new move-ins. He's had over 20 years of experience in B2B and B2C sales and marketing for small businesses. He works with a wide variety of businesses from manufacturing to senior care communities. He's also the author of Overcoming Negative Online Reviews, How to Survive a Digital Attack, available on Kindle. He's had over 40 presentations in the last 5 years, including at a conference at the Colorado Assisted Living Association and Leading Age Colorado. So please welcome Peter Brissette.
Thank you very much for the great introduction. I've been listening this week to a number of the introductions, and some of them are amazing. Like, these people are on, CNN and NBC. I'm like, how do I get on one of those? I probably have to do something really bad to get on one of those, and that probably wouldn't be good. So I'm kind of okay that I'm not on any major news network. I'm glad to be here presenting to you guys here this morning. They saved the best for last. There's only a few more presentations today, so that's what I'm counting on. So we're going to talk about reviews marketing and how can you use online reviews to increase move-ins. That's the basic premise that I want to propose to you today. There's 3 categories of information that I want to cover. Something called citations, which I'll explain. We'll talk about maps, and then of course we'll dig into reviews and how that works and what you need to be doing there. So as mentioned in my introduction, it's been 10 years ago that I first published this report. I've made several revisions to it. You can get the latest on Kindle. I've seen that online reviews was moving in the direction it has been over the last 10 years. I saw some really interesting things happening even 10 years ago as it relates to online reviews. And so it's really been an area that we've tried to specialize in particular for many local businesses, but senior care communities. So the real question is, what results do we want to get? What are we really after? Well, of course, we need more move-ins. We need to fill beds. That's ultimately what we're after. And some of what we'll talk today accomplishes even more than that. You want to be found. If family members, if people in your community want to find your community, they need to be able to do that easily. And what are some ways that you can do that? And then how do you create consistency in your branding and your messaging? So a number of the presentations I've seen this week emphasize that. How can you make sure your branding is consistent throughout? And of course, how is your reputation looking as people look at you online? So let's talk about citations. What's a citation? So this is not a bad thing you get after you've had an inspection, okay? I did get a citation the other day in Colorado. That was really bad. But anyway, different kind of citation. Citation is a mention of your business on the internet. In particular, there's a lot of sites that put your company name, address, and phone number. We call that the NAP, N-A-P. Your name, address, and phone number shows up on a website, oftentimes with a link to your website as well. So citations are really key in helping you to be able to be found in an online search. It's one of the ways that Google figures out who should I be showing in this search result based on what this person just typed in the search engine. So it's important for your community because of that, because of how you're going to show up in local search. So if that is strong there, you've got a good presence in your citations, and I'll explain some of the sites you can put this on, you're just going to be found much easier. It helps establish trust and create authority, not just for the people who are looking for you, but for the search engines. We want to keep search engines like Google and Bing very happy and very clear that your name, your business, your brand is authoritative, that it has credibility. And Citations is a way for us to do that. And obviously it makes it locally relevant. Most of the searches for assisted living happen in a very small radius. I know in denser areas it's maybe 5 miles. In bigger areas, people are looking, is that community close to my loved one, or is it close to me so that I can make sure that I can go visit my loved one? So it's a very small radius that people are looking for. Again, it's going to improve your local rankings, and it's very foundational. So this is a basic foundation of local SEO. So SEO is search engine optimization. It's kind of the building block that you build everything else on. You can always do more. There's always more things that can be done, but this is very, very foundational to everything else that you're doing. So what are some of the sites? The first category of sites we call aggregators. Aggregators are kind of at the top of the food chain. These are sites that once they have your information, they then push that data out to hundreds of other sites as they collect that. There's other key sites. Facebook's a really important site for your business. Having that Facebook business page set up with the correct information, very critical. Yelp is another one. That one really gets skipped a lot in senior care. It's not a big site for people to look up for senior care anyway, but still important to have your data and information up to date and correct on there. And then a few others, Foursquare, Dun and Bradstreet as well. And then we have our primary search engines. So the big ones right now, Google is ginormous, of course, Bing, but the other one is Apple Maps. So Apple Maps has kind of become its own local search engine over the last couple of years here. And it's heavily, heavily used by Apple phone users, of course, who are using Apple Maps to find information and to find local businesses. So we want to make sure that the correct data is getting pushed to all these different search engines. And then there's a handful of other different sites, geographical or vertical directories, sites like MapQuest and Superpages, City Search. And then there are very niche specific sites. So in particular in the assisted living industry, we've identified close to 30 key sites that are really important for you to have your community listed on. So the community's name, address, phone number, your website, pictures of your community, that you have a login to these sites. So if things change, you can update that information on those sites. And this is those there. And by the way, if you have questions anytime throughout the presentation, I should have prefaced this at the beginning. Rose is here. She's going to flag those questions for me and send them over, and we'll do that. And of course, we'll have a copy of the presentation available so you guys can look at this. That's my most often requested slide. Oh. And then there's hundreds of other sites. So not only are there those, there's so many others that are available out there that you can list your information on. So it kind of looks like this. If you were to condense that down into one slide, it would look like this. We have our aggregators at the top, our key sites on the left and right, the different directories, everything funneling down to our major search engines. And you can see all these squiggly lines going from one to the other. We know for sure on some sites exactly which influence the other sites, and then the other ones we're just kind of guessing. We think they influence the others. So it's not an exact science, but we can kind of look at the data over time and kind of figure some of that out. So this all kind of goes into that local search and how you're going to get found in the first place. So part of the challenge with this is that the data gets messed up. It's inconsistent, and that's where you really have a problem. The challenge is that there's no single authoritative source. So you would think that, hey, I have my website, and my website has my address of my location, and if I have multiple locations, they're all there on my website. That's the authority, right? No, Google doesn't know that. Like there's not something in the search tools that go, oh yeah, this one's the correct one and this one's the wrong one. It's just collecting data. And then it meshes all that data together. So for instance, you have data that's out there with the state health department. Well, what if they spelled your business name wrong or did something wrong with that information or had a different phone number? So now we have new information. You did work on the property and you filed for a permit with the city. And that data is public data. That gets scooped up into the information. Consumers can actually give signals of different information. So Google in particular has their local search guides. And a local search guide is leaving reviews, adding information. They can look at your Google business profile and be like, oh no, that's not their phone number, this is their phone number. And can put in different data. So again, the data can get mixed up there. And then you have your phone company. So when you set up the phone number for the business, the phone company might have spelled the name wrong or got something wrong or added information that shouldn't have been there along with that. So this is something you have to check, you have to look at, you have to work on it, and make sure that that information is getting updated because, again, there's no authoritative record of what is the correct information. The other thing that's important with this category is it influences voice search. So if you've got an iPhone, you've used Siri. If you have Amazon Alexa at home, you've done voice, maybe looking up movies or whatever it is. But more and more people are using this to find local businesses. A lot of times in their car, right? They're using Google Assistant and other tools like this to look up local businesses and get information on local businesses. So here's some of the stats on that. 58% of consumers have used voice search to find local business information within the last year. This is 6 months old data, by the way. 46% of voice search users look for a local business daily. 27% visit the website of a local business after conducting a voice search. And 76% of smart home speaker users conduct local searches at least once a week, with 53% performing daily searches. So it's increasing dramatically quickly. It's just going to keep increasing. These devices that we use with voice command is going to become more of the standard of voice search. Fewer and fewer people are actually typing a search into a search engine. It's more and more being done by voice. And this is just an example of one of the, and I'll have something at the end where we kind of evaluate what your citations look like. So some key points, things that you can do. This is some stuff that we do for clients as well. Submit your data to those top aggregator sites once a year. Make sure it's up to date. You can add 10 new citations every month. You can just do a search and find new sites that you can add it to. And then you want to manually claim, meaning you want to claim that listing, put a username and a password so you have ownership of that account, so that as you want to make changes or updates, you can do that anytime that you want to. All right, so let's talk about Google My Business. So this is your Google map listing, your free Google map listing that you get on Google. Probably very familiar with that. There's some really important information about this that you need to be aware of. It used to be, not that long ago, that you would update that Google map information one time and then be done with it. Never have to touch it again. That is no longer the case. If you want to show up in a consistent and regular basis in search engines, you have to work on it every single month. So there's a lot of information there that Google's always making changes and to, it seems like, on a regular basis. So in particular right now, with COVID-19, there's a whole separate category that Google's added in Google My Business related to COVID-19. So in your communities, you have a lot of rules that you're trying to follow within your communities, and you need to let people know if they're trying to come and they want to visit a family member, whatever it is, could be one of your vendors. What information do they need to know before they can even come to the facility? So there's a whole category set up where you can post updates related specifically to COVID-19. What are the rules of visiting my community? Here's what you have to do that. And you can add that right there. So as soon as someone looks up your business, it's going to pop up. They're going to see it right on the Google My Business page, and they'll know exactly what they need to do to interact with your community. Obviously, the description of the community, you can list out all your services. So all the services and amenities that you have in your communities, you can actually list all those details out right there on the Google My Business page. You can do images and you can do video on Google My Business as well. This is something you should add to every single month. Think of it just like you do with your Facebook page. You're adding pictures on a regular basis to your Facebook page, right? It's more content there that people look at. While this is not a social networking site, the images do matter. People look at those images. They want to see what's happening in that community. And the more images that you have, the more Google wants to show those, right? More content, Google wants to share that content with searchers. So you can add images, you can add video. Obviously your hours, your business category is important. I've seen some people make the mistake of calling their assisted living facility a retirement center. So if that applies to you, great. But if you don't have independent living or something like that, you're just assisted living, you want to make sure that category is set correctly, because that's how Google decides how you're going to show up in the search results. If I search assisted living and you're marked as something else, independent living or retirement community, you may not come up in the search results at all, because you got to have that category correct. So the post, the COVID-19 is a post that you can do. If you're posting different content, it's a picture, a little bit of text, and a link back to your website. Again, it's more information that users can interact with. Obviously, the reviews, we'll dig into that a little bit more. The other thing that we really recommend for everybody, and we do this for our clients, is actually putting a phone call tracking number on your Google My Business page. So there's a lot of data that Google My Business page provides you, which show how many times you came up in search results. It shows if somebody clicked through to your website, and it shows phone calls that were made to your community. The problem is it only shows phone calls that were made from a mobile device. So if someone pulls up Google My Business and they press call that community, that's going to register in the data that Google My Business has. But if I pulled you up on my desktop and then picked up my phone and called you, there's no way for Google to track that. So we recommend putting in a tracking phone number so every single call that's made through that Google My Business page is tracked, and you can see exactly how that Google My Business page is really performing for you. The other thing that is getting missed is that there's a lot of different maps applications out there. There's a few here on the slides, sites like TomTom, Waze, and then every car manufacturer has their own navigation system. So if you buy a new BMW, BMW's got its own navigation system. You buy a new Hyundai, it's got its own navigation. Now almost all of them will connect to your mobile device, so a lot of times people just use that. But every car manufacturer, General Motors, Ford, they all have their own navigation systems as well. So making sure that that data is up to date is important. And of course, Apple is a big one. All right, here's the meat of the thing. Let's talk about reviews. This is really the most important piece of this whole presentation. Not that what we just said wasn't important, I just think this is the priority. So what's review marketing? I call this review marketing because it should be like any other type of marketing. Social media marketing is kind of a category of marketing. For me, review marketing is a category of marketing. that you should have a plan around, that you should have a system around, that you have a way of tracking data and information to really use that as a tool to help you grow new move-ins in your community. So the real question is, are seniors and their families using the internet? Do they look at reviews? Does it matter? Well, Americans age 65 plus with annual income greater than $75 are using the internet. 87% are online. Majority use the internet every single day. 81% own smartphones. 65% use tablets, and 57% use social networks. I think we're aware of that. Do consumers research local business before doing business with them? So data is overwhelmingly strong. 97% of consumers research local business. They're going to look at that. They're checking it out. There's hardly nobody that doesn't do that. So this is a really important stat. So I don't know if in Texas, do they have Nextdoor? You have the Nextdoor app here in Texas too? To me, that's kind of like the digital talking over the fence and making a recommendation, right? You go over the fence to your neighbor and you say, hey, I need a plumber. Oh yeah, use my guy, he's great. And you make that recommendation over the back of your fence. Nextdoor is kind of like that digitally, right? Oh, they're in my neighborhood, so now I can totally trust them of who a good plumber is. Which doesn't really make any sense to me, just because they happen to live in the same neighborhood, I can trust them. Oh, I live in this neighborhood, so they must be okay. So there's some inferred trust that happens there, which I don't totally understand, but there's that. But when someone recommends someone to you like that, face to face, like you almost wholeheartedly trust that. Like if someone said, yeah, call my plumber, you're going to call that plumber 9 times out of 10. Like you're going to call that plumber. So when you look at reviews and how much a consumer trusts a review, 8 out of 10 consumers trust that just as much as a personal recommendation. So 80% of the time, I'm looking at a review, and that's just the same to me as you telling me, call my plumber. That's how powerful online reviews are. I think that tells a lot about how much they really are trusted. We can find reviews in assisted living, right? They're all over the place. A couple stats from caring.com, so they're one of the top review sites out there for senior care. National senior living companies that their listings have 15 or more reviews got 8 times more move-ins versus those with 1 or 2 reviews. So the quantity of the reviews that you have, we'll talk more about that, absolutely matters. How much is a review worth? Is there a way to quantify it, put a dollar amount to it? So caring.com and all their research that they've been doing for years estimates that a review could be worth over $54,000. That's revenue to your community. Pretty significant. So where are the reviews being collected? Google, of course. I think Google is the #1 place that you need to be focused on in getting reviews. That's the first interaction that most people have with your business. When they're doing a search, they're going to see that Google My Business page way before they even get to your website. So you want to make sure that you're collecting reviews there as well. Facebook, your Facebook business page. You need to be collecting reviews there. There's stuff that Facebook's kind of been working on over time. We haven't seen it fully developed. But over time, I think you'll see even Facebook making more emphasis for local businesses. And so having your reviews there is super important. Again, Yelp, I kind of mentioned that before. Good to have some reviews there. Not a high priority as far as I'm concerned. Make sure your data's up to date there, but nothing wrong with having reviews there as well. Caring.com is one of the top review sites for senior care. Highly recommend that. And then if you're working with a Place for Mom referral agency at all, they've got 2 sites that are basically sister sites, A Place for Mom and senioradvisor.com. they kind of do the review collection there, but you want to make sure you're monitoring that and looking at that and making sure what's happening on those sites. There's a handful of others. There's another side to this that people overlook a lot, and that's sites like Indeed and Glassdoor. So these are sites that you use for hiring, and people that have worked for you will go and leave you reviews there. So do you think it would be important to get some of your happy employees to leave positive reviews on those sites? Because it could help you in being able to hire people in the future. So it's one that really gets overlooked, those two sites. You want to be constantly monitoring those. The other one that really gets left out, and nobody really talks about, is LinkedIn. So you have your executive team, you have key people that work in your communities. They have profiles on LinkedIn. Why not work together as a group, and let's get some recommendations and some positive recommendations on the work that they do for your community within their profiles. So that benefits them and it benefits you as the community as well. And it's a good place to develop that reputation. Again, if you're trying to hire people in the future, it's really a good thing to have a good presence on LinkedIn as well. All right, some key points. We kind of hinted around them. We'll dig into this a little bit more. So this is what I call the RFP of reviews. It's recency, frequency, and proximity with a Q squared. And the Q squared is quantity and quality. And we'll dig into those. So how recent is the review is part of what Google looks at. How frequently you get reviews is part of what Google looks at. And then, of course, how close the searcher is to doing the search matters as well. And then the quantity and quality. So these are some stats compiled by a site called localseoguides.com. And they correlated what were the top 8 factors in search results for Google My Business page. So the first one was distance from center of search. The second was additional organic rankings. So that has to do with your website. And then everything else has to do with reviews. So number 3 there, the number of reviews with your keyword. So is there the keyword phrase that they searched? Is that somewhere in the review text, the body of the text? Do you have greater than 0 Google reviews? So if you have no Google reviews right now, you're like invisible. Like you don't even matter. Google's like, no reviews, not important. Percentage of the reviews, so of all your reviews, what percentage have some related keyword in the review itself? Another factor was number of reviews not responded to. This affects you adversely. So if you have reviews that you haven't replied to on Google, it actually is hurting your search results. So you want to reply to every single review that you have on Google, positive or negative. You want to make sure you post a reply to that. I really try when posting replies to my own reviews, I try to elaborate a little bit more about why is that person even leaving the review? What work did we do for them? How long have we been working with them? Where are they at? Like I try to provide a little more context to that as well. So whatever context you can provide is important. Average yearly reviews. So how many reviews do you get on average every single year? So Google's looking at over time what's happening to your reviews on Google. And then how many reviews with likes? You may not have realized this, but a good review actually has a thumbs up, thumbs down on it. People can like it or not like that review that's left on your Google My Business profile. So it's another factor in that. So when you factor that all together, what's most important is the reviews. 61% out of all of this, the reviews are the most important thing that you can be doing right now to help you get found in search results. If you did nothing else but built out your Google reviews and developed that, you would get positive results. So quality matters as well. So the more that you can encourage your family members in, again, providing the detail of why they want to leave a positive review. Tell us more about why you even want to do it. So this is a great example. This is one that I found. Talks about how long they've been there. They chose it because it's close to their home, right? Proximity, we know this. I was satisfied with what I found. They talk about the activities. What are people looking for their loved ones? They want great activities, don't they? They want to know how the staff is. The staff's great. They do all these things. They have all these things going on in the facility. They want to know that the meals are going to be good. So the more you can encourage your family members to go, explain why. What is it you like about us? And tell us that in the review. Tell us about the activities. Tell us about the meals. Tell us about the things that you really like about our community. That quality of review is going to give you even a greater impact in that. So why do you need some type of plan? Why do you need to actually be working on this on a regular basis? See if I can give you a good example here. So this gal here, Brandon Leanne, left a 5-star review on Facebook for my client. That was nice of her to do that. I appreciate that. And that was it. It had been about 11 months ago at the time that I was looking at this. So 11 months later, I get this message on my client's page. It says, here's your client. You can see Brianna Leanne admitting this. She works in a care community, not my client's care community, by the way, actually in a completely other state. But you can see how somehow these got connected because she left a review and now she's talking about something that she does. So she works in an assisted living facility in another state, and she's in a group on Facebook. So this Pepper London is the one messaging us, which, by the way, is a fake name, which, that's Pepper London, sounds kind of funny anyway. So she says, I'm looking for information regarding your facilities. I stumbled across one of your employees in a group of 30,000 women that admitted this. It was kind of gross is what it was. It had to do with the care of the men. It was gross. So I blocked it out because you don't want to read it. And so she's sending these messages. I want to talk to your management. I want to talk, I'm going to report you to social services. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So it took me a little bit of work. I had to dig through and kind of uncover this. And first of all, I realized Pepper London wasn't a real person. But I did reach out and make contact with her. She did communicate with me. And then I went back and pointed out. I said, by the way, Brianna Leanne's in a different state. She doesn't work in in this community at all. She can't. So she took all this down. She got rid of it all. We were able to work it out. But not paying attention, not doing anything, if you didn't trace all the steps and figure this out, here would be all this negative information that looks like there is out there about your community. And then things like this happen. I'm going to read this to you because I think, to me, this is funny. So I hope you find this hilarious. So Joseph, he leaves a 1-star review. He says, I was walking by the facility when one of the employees almost hit me. Black hair, really skinny. Kind of looked like an ex-girlfriend of mine, but she wouldn't have any business in a care center since she can't even take care of her kid. Bottom line, make sure your employees can drive. So I'm sure you don't get that a lot, that people complain about the driving of your caregivers in your community. But this is the random stuff that sometimes you got to pay attention to and look out for. So we talked about who actually reads reviews and leaves reviews. So this is part of the challenge. In senior care in particular, it's actually not easy to get reviews. It's not easy. It takes work to get reviews. It really does. It's not as simple as, you had 50 people in your restaurant tonight and you got 4 new reviews. Like that's easy. That just happens organically. In senior care, you got to work at it. And this is part of the reason. While, vast majority of people read reviews, only 6% of people actually write reviews. Very small percentage of people that will take the time to write reviews. So to us, that means there's good reviews that are waiting to happen. Like people do want to write good reviews, but you haven't put a process in place to make that happen. And again, what can happen is kind of what we've seen. If you don't have a system in place for collecting the good reviews, what you wind up getting is just the negative reviews, because we're motivated by emotion. When I'm angry, I got to go do something about it. I could be really happy, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go write a review, even though I had a happy experience. Sometimes I need a little encouragement to do that. So 2 things you got to do to get more reviews. Number 1, you got to make it easy. So create a way that you're able to send information to family members, put it on a piece of paper. Again, this is a lot of stuff that we do for our clients. Here's how you leave us a review. Give them very specific descriptions of what it takes to do it and what they have to do to leave your review. So make it easy for them. And secondly, ask. And get your caregivers involved. When they're interacting with the family members and they hear a positive thing, thank you so much for all you're doing for my mom. Thank you for these great activities that you do with my mom. Oh, by the way, can you leave us a review about that? Like at the moment that that's happening, that's your best chance to be able to collect those reviews. And then systemize it and incentivize it. So incentivize it with your care team. So if you're saying, hey, we need to get 4 new reviews this month. If we get 4 new reviews, we're going to have an ice cream social for everybody. Like incentivize your team to help you in the process of getting more reviews. It really is that important. I'm going to skip past some of this. This is some of the stuff that we do for clients. Have we any questions yet?
Not just yet.
Okay. So a couple more things, and then we'll open up to questions. So this slide here, it reminds me of the time when I was a kid. I was probably, 9 or 10 years old. My dad worked in downtown Denver. He's a computer programmer. And on a Saturday morning, he's like, do you want to come to work with me? And I'm like, heck yeah, let's go. And I had never been in downtown Denver before that I can recall. So we lived out in the suburbs, never been in downtown Denver. So we get there, he parks the car, and we're walking, and I'm just looking up at all these tall buildings. I mean, they seem so huge and so massive. And he's walking so fast, like he's on a mission to get to the office. And I just remember at that moment trying to keep up with him, so he reached down his hand and he grabbed my hand so he could kind of pull me along with him. And what I remember about that moment is that even though I was in a strange place, even though I didn't know anything of what was going on, I trusted my dad. I knew everything was going to be fine. There was trust there. My point with talking about reviews and what we're doing with all of this that we've talked about already is how can you build enough trust with what you look like online so that somebody's willing to take the next step with you, that they're willing to make a phone call, that they're willing to schedule an appointment, that they're willing to move forward so that you can establish that little bit of trust. And the other thing I want to know is that when I'm going to use a car wash, I really want to know that the vacuums do suck. Because if the vacuums don't suck, I'm not going to get a very clean car.
That was awesome. Love that.
That's an actual billboard. It's not up anymore. This was a billboard for a car wash back in Denver. I had to take a picture of it. It's gone now. I'm so glad I have that picture.
It's great. We do have a comment that if you could please, give us your insights on what is your best suggestion for addressing negative reviews, especially from disgruntled former
Yes.
employees, excuse me, that are focused on spreading hate and discontent.
Yeah. So this is a really, it's a tough category of this. And again, this is why this is so important to address. First of all, you have to address this from the positive standpoint, in that you're building out a really strong positive review profile, so that when that does happen and you have employees, and if it hasn't happened yet, it's just a matter of when is that going to happen, okay? It really is. So if you've got a super strong profile already, it's not going to be much of an impact. That really is your best defense against that situation. So in general, how do you deal with that person? What happens most frequently that I've seen in those situations is that people can get really crazy, first of all. And they really cross lines in terms of accusations and threats and things and naming people and all that stuff that they do. The good thing about the sites that we have out there, Google in particular and others, is that once it reaches that level, you can almost always request that kind of stuff gets removed. That's inflammatory. This is not an objective review of that business. And so sites like Google and like that, so there's a process to flag those to Google to ask that those be removed. On Google in particular. So, hopefully it doesn't happen, but it does. It does. And so you have to try to deal with it as best you can. And hopefully, you can hire good people and not have people do that to you, but you never know. Like, you never really know the character of a person sometimes until you fire them, and then you find out for sure. Does that help?
That's great. Really good information. If anyone has any additional questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. We do have a good amount of time that we can take advantage of Peter's expertise. So former employees. So I would say too, if it's a concern or it's come up in the past, is that you may want to look at, how do we do more of an exit interview process to give them some chance to vent about it before they go online and vent. Yeah. So can you give them another mechanism of expressing how they felt? So it could be an email with a survey or something like that. Most people, in the stats that we see, when someone is angry or upset with somebody, and they just want to get it out. And so it's very few. Once in a while you get someone that'll go to multiple sites, like they're just trying to destroy you. They've just lost their minds. That's pretty unusual. That's really the rarity, where they're going to multiple sites to do that. It's usually just once, where they just want to vent and get it out. So if you can have another mechanism to give them an opportunity, so you can say, hey, we want to know your experience. Please share it here. This is going to go to everybody that matters. And you give them a chance to express that and vent that in an environment that you have some control over, then you can avoid some of that might show up online somewhere. Is there a general strategy that you can recommend for, let's say, a small operator that has maybe 4 communities, that they could routinely have a practice to be able to keep up with this? Like, is there kind of a general oversight that you can recommend?
Yeah. I mean, some of it's having the tools that you need for that. So that's some of the stuff that we do for our clients. But in general, if you, again, have a goal, I want to have, 1 review every 3 months. If it's a smaller community, if you could get 2 or 3 reviews a year in a smaller community, that's amazing, because it's not easy to do. So it's not like your competitors are going to get 15, if they're similar to you. So you just want to see that over time,
you're getting some in there. So you got to look at it. You got to pay attention to it. You got to track it. Put it somewhere in your dashboard of the things that we track, and include that in there. It's got to be a metric that you follow and measure. Because some of this too is about, and I don't know if there's been someone that's talked about it this week, but a lot of the assisted living conferences, that I attend, there's the whole satisfaction surveys. How satisfied are people in your communities, right? You're looking at that number. Your reviews should be a representation of that. So if you're already actually doing some of the satisfaction surveys, that's great that you're collecting that information, but then how do you take that and move that to to actual online reviews and include that as part of it?
Thank you. I would really like to just close with emphasizing again one of the things I saw on your slide, which is 97% of consumers research your business. And
Yes.
In senior living, we've kind of slowly evolved into the online world,
Yes.
and it's really taking a good amount of traction. But I think that's a really very important point to make sure that our websites are up to date, our information is constantly up to date, and that we continuously refresh it the way you pointed it out.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
We do have one question in the audience.
Oh, great. Go for it.
Yeah, hey, Peter. I had two questions.
Sure.
Great presentation. So in efforts to get some of these Google reviews, we understand the importance of those. For our residents, in some cases, we had residents who were willing and ready, but didn't have a Google account.
Yep.
And we kind of came into some gray areas of like, are we overstepping here to get that Google review from somebody?
Sure.
Is it too far to go create a Google account for that person and all of those things? Do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I don't think I would recommend making a Google account for them. It's still okay if it's just out of the question, just getting some kind of testimonial is fine too, because you can add that to your website. But you can also have them use Facebook, because a lot of them are going to have Facebook accounts. So giving them some alternatives there, I think is a good option too. The real key thing, for all intents and purposes, it's a very authentic review. There's something to me about the integrity of the reviews, that this is an account that someone has their full username and everything, they're putting their name to this review, and that adds so much credibility to reviews so that they're impactful. So it's a little bit on the edge of, if we start creating accounts and things like that now we can start to question, are these really authentic reviews?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And those are some of the questions.
And their family members are the ones that matter the most, I think, on Google reviews, because most of the time that's who's looking, is their family members.
Sure. And then the second question, if we have time still, on one of your slides, I found the statistic of 61% is the correlating factor of importance for Google searches with reviews.
Yes.
And then it was about 15%, I think, to content.
Yes.
So reviews are 4 times more powerful than the content we create and put on our sites. So as far as doing like video testimonials of our residents or family members, are you saying that it would be 4 times more powerful for them to go do an online review instead?
I would say get both if you can. They're both really powerful. A video testimonial is hugely powerful. So it may not show up initially in the search result, but in that buyer's journey as they're going through the process, really important. So I wouldn't say abandon one or the other. Get the Google reviews so they find you in the first place. Do the video testimonial so it helps them go, it just reconfirms what they've already looked and saw. And so they're like, okay, this is the place I need to go to. Yeah, video testimonials are fantastic. If you're doing that, absolutely do that. So quick free offer. We have a couple reports that we can do for you. One is voice search readiness. Are you showing up in voice searches? We can build a report for you that shows that. And then a comprehensive reputation report. How do you look compared to your competition? And break that down for you. You can see how you're doing there. Completely free.
No obligation. We'd love to do that for you.
Okay, all, we are going to take a quick break to switch speakers, and we'll be back live at 9:30.